Welcome viewers. Our guest today is Miss Becky Grimsrud, a pilot and a community member of our Peace region. Welcome, Becky.
Thank you very much for having me.
Welcome. So first of all, please tell us about your professional background.
Well, I got my helicopter license when, in 2005, my commercial helicopter license. And after that, I got my first job in Fort St. John in the beginning of 2006, and it was helicopter related, but I was doing a lot of other tasks. So brushing leases, suspended well inspections, surface casing vent tests, stuff like that, which was all kind of a good intro to the oil and gas industry up here as well. After that, I got my first PPC, which is a pilot proficiency check ride, for anyone not aware. Basically, every year as a commercial pilot, you need to take a flight test or a pilot proficiency check ride in order to be certified to fly commercially for an airline. So I got my first PPC in 2008 and have been flying commercially ever since then. Doing a few other tasks as well as flying, such as a little bit of crew resource management instructing, which is crew resource management. I had the opportunity to take the course a couple of years ago, is basically a crew member's awareness of how their action or inaction can affect the safe outcome of a flight. And that course is actually very applicable to a lot of industries other than aviation. It's founded in aviation, but there's a lot of other industries that it's very applicable to. Basically anything where some kind of a human error could cause a really catastrophic event, and there's a large error margin and a large amount of risk inherent with a job. So I actually had the opportunity to teach some wildfire fighters the course this spring, and that was really interesting for me, and I think for them as well, I hope. But it could be applicable to a lot of different industries. I've also done a little bit of quality assurance management on the flight operations side, just checking up to make sure people are doing what they're supposed to be doing on the quality assurance side. So that's basically my background professionally. In terms of flying, I've done everything from oil and gas to firefighting to environmental, all sorts of different tasks with that. So it's been really interesting.
Great. And talking about aviation, the concept of vertical flights, when did it start?
The basic concept of vertical flight, the earliest reference to it was actually back in 400 BC. You might have seen, there's a little Chinese toy called a bamboo copter that is a little rotor blade that is on a stick. And if you spin it, it actually goes flying up in the air. And I think I had one when I was a kid. I was just thinking I've got to try and get a hold of one of those for my kids to try out. But that's the basic history of vertical flight in terms of historical documented references to it.
Interesting. And when we talk about helicopters, so when were the first relatively modern helicopters designed?
There were a few little steps that led to the eventual creation of an actual helicopter, but the first production helicopter actually wasn't until the early 1940s, and Igor Sikorsky was the developer of those helicopters, which were called the R4, and they were there was a production order of 100 of them for the military. I would say the first recognizable helicopter that most people have seen in movies like MASH, that kind of thing, are the Bell 47, which was very shortly after that. That was the first civilian helicopter that most people recognize.
And what inspired you to become a pilot?
The short answer to that question is when I was 19, I did my motorcycle license, and the day that I completed my road test was the day that I got the idea in my head to first become a helicopter pilot. Now, I would say that there was a dramatic or a veer in the path that my life took earlier than that in terms of career aspirations. When I was in high school, I had a math teacher, which admittedly was not my favorite topic in school, and he recommended to me that I apply for a trade scholarship that was being offered to my graduating class in high school. And up until that point, I had never even considered the idea of a trade. I had been thinking, well, I don't really know what I want to do. Maybe I will take a couple courses at the college, something that's somewhat interesting to me, maybe some English. I don't know. So up until that point, I was kind of at a loss. And when he made that recommendation to me, it got me thinking about trades, and it got me thinking about a whole new realm of possibilities in terms of where my career could possibly go. And I applied for the scholarship and I got it, and I wound up taking my entry-level automotive course right out of high school. I did decide that I didn't want to become a mechanic after all, but I think that that was the moment that really opened up a whole new realm of possibilities for me in my mind in terms of what I could aspire to be as a career.
Thank you. And how have you enjoyed living in Fort St. John?
I love it here. Just the recreational opportunities alone, the hills, the rivers, all the things that there are to do here. Summertime, obviously, it's beautiful here. There's a lot to do, but there's things even in the winter that are incredibly fun. And I mean, we've got our festivals in town, High on Ice, that kind of thing. But even when there's nothing going on in terms of, you know, a community event, if you have a Tuesday afternoon off or something, the beaten ski trails are beautiful, and the local ski club actually rents skis for those. So if you want to go and try that out, I actually did a little bit of that last winter, and now I think it's at the point that this year I'm going to have to buy my own set. But it's nice that those kind of things are offered in this community, and there's so many things to do. But I would say the thing I appreciate the most about Fort St. John out of everything is the people here. The people here are incredibly warm and incredibly helpful, and if you're ever at loose ends or you're struggling in life, the people in Fort St. John will be the first to really come in and help you out. And that to me has been just incredible to see here.
Great. And talking about the community, so what community service roles have you played in the past?
In the past, you know, a lot of times I've played a little bit of a background role in terms of community roles. I am a member of the Kin Club, so with that I've helped out with things like senior supper, Easter egg hunt, designated driving, miscellaneous different things that the Kin Club helps out with, different food drives, stuff like that. I've also been involved in several different sports communities and things like that. I was played hockey for the North Peace Eagles for a few years, and they would always do things like the Fill the Bus along with some of the other local hockey teams, helping out with things like that. But I think the biggest thing in terms of a community role is just helping out in the background, and you know, as a community, if we see somebody who needs help, just help them. It doesn't have to be a big drive or a big event in order to just help our neighbors.
Great. And how are you interested to continue to contribute as a community member?
Basically, that all comes down to everyone banding together, and I'd really like to be able to get more people involved in everything from the things that the city does to consultations to what we want to accomplish as a community and what we can really do together to make this city better for all of us. I'd really like to see a lot more involvement from everyone and a lot more just communication and collaboration.
Thank you. And what does community development mean to you?
Community development really, to me, has a lot to do with that banding together and working together to try and make things better for everyone. And that to me is the basis of community development, where if we can all work together, then we can get huge things accomplished, and it's just amazing the things that our community is capable of, which we have seen time and time again. Our community is just amazing.
And what's your opinion about the capital projects running in our community presently?
Capital projects, I think, really need to be weighed in terms of risk versus benefit. Obviously, as a community, we all want to see these services that are so necessary in our community, such as roads and infrastructure, water, all these different things that we rely on, the police, the fires, everything that we rely on as a community to keep us safe, keep us able to move around and able to go through our daily lives. Now, on the flip side of that, we also, obviously, it's a bit of a shock sometimes as a homeowner myself when you get that tax bill at the end of the year and you realize, like, oh, this is how much I'm paying for all this stuff. So it's really the cost versus benefit in that regards. We want these services, but we want to make sure that they're done in a way that is fair to all of us as taxpayers.
And in your opinion, how can the city management balance the interests of multiple stakeholders?
That's really a big picture question, I would say. Multiple stakeholders, everyone has different things that they want from the city, from each other, from the community, and we really have to look at what is the big picture of what do we want as a city, what is going to be beneficial for the majority of people. That's, I would say, the basis of the entire idea of balancing the interests of multiple different stakeholders, community groups, residents, and everyone that has something to do with the city.
Please comment on the quote, shop local, eat local, spend local.
That's a great question. Have you ever checked out the farmers market in town?
Yes.
It is absolutely incredible, the variety of things that we have in Fort St. John offered to us. And I think a lot of times people maybe don't realize what we actually have in the city that is available to us in terms of local things. There's a lot of other things out here that obviously we can't get in Fort St. John that we're going to have to buy elsewhere, bigger things that just aren't available. But if people really look at what is actually available in Fort St. John, there is a huge variety of really amazing things that you can buy here, and that you can support those local businesses and not have to go out of town and be able to keep the money in our community, the small business owners, the people that rely on that livelihoods for their families. Look at some of the produce that can be grown in Fort St. John. I have a garden in my yard, and some of the things that we produce here with our long days and all the sunlight we get in the summer, it's really incredible. So I fully support that idea of being able to support your neighbor.
Excellent, thank you. And what's the most important lesson you have learned from life?
I would say the most important lesson that I have learned is don't let fear of failure stop you from following your dreams.
Good. And lastly, what's your vision of a peace community?
My vision for the peace. I really want to see a place where we can all live happily and not have to worry about where our next meal is coming from, whether we're going to have a job tomorrow. I want to see a community where people are not so stressed out about the basics of living, and where they can really enjoy life and kick back and enjoy some of the things that the Peace Region has to offer. There's so much more to life than just struggling. And that's what I would like to see from our region, being able to all work together and find solutions to these problems and have everyone be able to enjoy their life that much more.
Thank you, Becky. Thank you for your thoughts, and also thank you for coming to the program. We wish you all the best.
Thank you so much for having me.